Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we're educating you. This just became a PBS podcast. I hope we're going to get picked up one of these days, but we are going to be talking about The Old Man and the C Student, and not only am I bringing along Richie, your co-host with the most, but also a very special guest, bringing the streak back to the podcast. We'll get to him in just a moment, but first, your co-host with the most, it's Richie the Whiz Kid.
That felt a little awkward there, Miles. Usually you introduce me and leave a little bit more of a tease, but they know who the streak belongs to. So I like to think that this is mostly just people that accidentally tuned in, and we don't really have a lot of week to week follow through. So it's going to be a surprise for 7 of the 8 of our listeners this week. Well, you hear that laughing in the background, and I guess if we wanted to be real jerks, we would just keep talking and make sure that he never gets to come on and actually start talking besides the laughing he's doing in the background. That would be a fun little bit for us to do. He's got a great laugh, honestly. It would still be a contribution to the show. He does. Yeah, it might make it better, make it a lot better, actually. But you know what? Instead of throwing it back to me, Richie, why don't you just throw it back to him? Oh, okay. This is something new. We're reinventing the genre right now. This is revolutionary. Let me throw it to the man with the streak. He is the man, the myth. This joke is a lot worse now because I'm saying it to him. He's Chief Break Everything. It is Andy. That was supposed to be for Miles. Podcast ruined. We're canceled. That was fun, guys.
That's it. We're done. Streak is over.
Richie, you can't make that joke in front of Andy. You know how sensitive Chief Breaking Everything is. Andy, welcome back to Best Darn Diddly, dude. I'm so glad you're here. We've already been, before we even hit the record button, we've already been laughing more on this episode than we have in the last few. So, this is a great, you bring a great energy to the show and a lot of knowledge. And we make insensitive jokes at your expense sometimes, and you still call us friends, or at least not enemies. So, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
Welcome, y'all. It's so nice to be back here, to remind you of your ever-increasing white privilege in this era of fascism. I hope you both feel incredibly guilty just for waking up this morning. No. It's so nice to be back once again on the Diddly. Jesus, how long have we been doing? How long have you guys been up to this now?
4 years, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 years in August.
That makes this your second longest relationship, right,
Miles? Accurate, yeah. No, easily.
Yeah. Nice.
Andy, I'm glad you're back, dude. It's like I said, this kind of the streak thing. I just kind of started as a bit because I like the wrestling terminology into the podcast periodically, just because I think it's funny when Richie agrees with it and has no idea what I'm talking about. I look at it as a baseball streak, like a hitting streak. So that's the way I've always. I literally put the Undertaker's music into the podcast every time Andy comes on. You mean in all the times I listen to it? I've never noticed that. Yeah, exactly. He gets the gong and everything. So Andy, let's do a life. This is your now. It's our 10th season. Is this your 10th appearance? Have we done? I can't remember if the streak is every season.
I haven't missed one somehow. Wow. I have not yet had anything better to do. It's wild.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if we counted since we used to do. But we just did 2 episodes at a time. Man, I don't know. It's been a long time. Yeah, you've been on for 1 episode for every season. This is your 10th appearance on Best Darn Diddly. That's incredible. You're on almost 5% of the shows. Wow.
Nice. That's outstanding. It's so nice to be back. Let me take this wonderful opportunity to tell you guys about the fact F that.
I'm not editing anymore. I should have warned you about that. That's one of the reasons that we're still going, is I gave that shit up years ago.
Oh, nice. Fabulous.
So we say F that to that.
Yeah.
F that to that. Well, as an academic, it's important that we pursue and discover forgotten writers and texts that have fell by the wayside, and I've been engaged in that behavior recently. I recently came across a volume of poems by a not very well-known poet by the name of Val Kilmer. Yeah. This was written in 1987, so he does have one poem in here about being in Top Gun. But if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to start with an interpretive reading of a poem by Val Kilmer.
Please.
Ooh, I feel like this is gonna have a tie into The Simpsons.
Oh, sure.
Let's cut it to you, Iceman.
Sucker. Having figured out 2 and 2 are 4, I rent a skywriting jet to proclaim I am King God. I love her, but I don't like anything she says or does. I am fades away into the blue above before King God is douched out in steamy white billows and bends into Kling Slob, and sucker and 2 make 8. Thank you.
So, you remember that episode of Entourage where Val Kilmer plays the weed-growing Sherpa? I feel like that poem was written by that character.
Well,
I feel like he read that poem out loud before he decided to take the role of Batman.
What I really like about these poems is that they indicate that, like, those weird-ass Val Kilmer characters that, like, everyone loves, that's probably the real Kilmer. Like, that's who he is in real, actual life. It's like, and that, like, the Iceman super cool Heat Val Kilmer is the acting.
That's
that's
the character, the facade he puts over himself.
Exactly, man. Anyways, I'm a huge fan, and that's what I've been up to.
Man, I'm so glad quarantine had been treating you well.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Val Kilmer's poems are valuable to American poetry.
Honestly, though, man, like, one thing I do remember is, like, long before quarantine or COVID or whatever, like, years ago when I knew you, you've always been one that if you could take a Skype meeting or a Zoom call without wearing pants, like, that was your go-to. So I actually feel like of everyone we've talked to this year, you might be actually doing better than most.
I mean, it is true that, I have not worn long pants during a Zoom meeting. I've worn shorts, to be clear. Like,
that's just because you don't want to, like, pull one of these scandals where you accidentally stand up and you're, like, playing with your boner or whatever.
Can we talk about how difficult it is to accidentally pull your dick out? Like, Richie, have you ever accidentally pulled any part of
sensitive
your
subject on that
out?
one? Maybe we should go with a different member of the panel. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Miles isn't allowed to comment on within like 50 feet of the
I
stool,
didn't ask Miles. I did not ask Miles. To be clear, I asked Richie.
I mean, there's some times where you feel like you got to adjust yourself, and maybe you adjust yourself slightly in the wrong direction, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, we're not playing hide and seek anymore. I found you. I finally killed Andy's mood.
Like, I'm just like sitting over here in a moment of contemplation about, like, wait a minute, did that motherfucker just, like, not successfully say, no, I have never accidentally pulled my dick out? Like, that's one step. Just know that, like, no, I won't denounce white supremacy. Just let the words out, bro. No, I haven't accidentally whipped my dick out. Right?
Wait, what? Oh, stand by, boners.
Stand by, yeah. Oh, man.
Back into his pants awkwardly.
I'm so glad that we still have this Simpsons podcast to get us through the end of humanity. Like, it's gonna be real good when the aliens find this in 3,000, 30,000, however long it takes. The new civilization.
No doubt. When they spin us up, they're gonna be like, wow, okay. I'm glad they were up to such important stuff.
Well, again, though, it's a weird year. I definitely think that, it's nice to have some consistency, at least on this end, but I'm glad things are going well. I'm glad that you're able to get the Val Kilmer poetry collection added to your university library. That's important. You've done good work. You have a legacy now, I think.
That's right. I'm going to make sure they put a plaque up about it.
Perfect. So, I also have to ask, though, we always kind of wonder, I pretty much give you free reign of picking your episode. I think I've bumped you once, and it was because Mike Reese chose the episode that you wanted, sorry. But you chose this season, The Old Man and the Sea Student, and I think I could make some obvious connections as to why you might have chose it, but I would love you to share why this episode of all of the other 23 episodes in the season stood out or shined brightest to you.
Well, not to get a little bit ahead, if you still do the part where you announce when this episode was originally released. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. We could do that real quick. This episode, and then I'll throw it right back to you. The Old Man and the Sea Student originally aired on April 25th, 1999. And I will just go ahead and add, because I otherwise will forget, the chalkboard gag on this one was loose teeth, don't need my help. And the couch gag is one we've seen before, where the Simpsons run in to find, like, the entire city of Springfield, or all of their, like, neighbors and friends are in their living room, sitting in front of their TV, and Homer actually reaches over comic book guy's shoulder and steals some of his popcorn. Which is a good gag. But April 25th, 1999 is the original air date of this episode. Is that significant to you, sir?
Well, in my very important biography, which is obviously all we're here to discuss. No, but in fall 98, I actually went to boarding school. That's too long of a story to get into, but
that explains a lot about what's wrong with you, for what it's worth.
It does. It does on a lot of levels. And among the many concerns that there were with boarding school is that you don't watch a lot of TV. So, as opposed to every season before this, where like The Simpsons was appointment television, and I was in front of the TV like pretty well every Sunday. Saw every episode like as it premiered, I think. This is the first season where I don't have that direct experience, right? So, when you were like, which episode, and you sent me the list, I looked through them and I was like, well, which one of those has a fucking literary reference in the title? I'm sure there will be some shit I can say about that. And I saw we had a nice Hemingway joke here, and I'm like, beautiful. I fucking love Hemingway. I could talk about Papa E for a long time, and maybe there's going to be like some sailing shit, or we're going to talk about fishing or nothing. And we
got some of that. There's sailing involved in this.
There is a boat.
Yeah.
There is a boat.
Hey, at least 2 boats, and probably some in the background.
Let's cling to the boat.
I'm glad you brought that up. The title sequence itself is a reference to The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Like I said, I knew there was going to be like the obvious connection, but I'm glad that this episode, or that you're here for this episode. I still think we're going to have plenty to talk about. I naturally assumed that you chose this episode because you were concerned for the jokes we might make about the beginning, the opening sequence with the International Olympic Committee, and you're essentially here to let us know which of these voices were allowed to attempt and which ones were not.
I mean, I think that passage speaks for itself. Like, I like to joke a lot about like the idea of 90s diversity. You know what I mean? Like, at least in my head, it feels like the 90s is when America started telling itself that it was done being racist. You know what I mean? Like, where we officially started. Do
you remember a moment or like a reason why like you make that? Like, I'm just genuinely curious. Like I could get behind this, but do you remember something specific in terms of a wave of change?
So it's hard to put one specific thing on, but I think there was this just general movement in the early 90s, across the 90s, I should say, to like bring some minorities into television and film and music, right? And to like establish, at least as a cultural concept, that we're giving lip service to the idea of equality, right? I don't know, I can't put an official finger on this, but like when I look back, like that is the thought I got as a kid, is that like racism was in the past, but that like by the time I was a kid, we had it 95% figured out. And like looking back on this fucking show really demonstrates like the extent to which that's like, well, maybe not so much.
You know, it's funny you say that because there's actually a smaller one in this one, but, you know, just speaking in terms of equality in general, like last week, for instance, we reviewed the episode, oh shoot, what's the...
Mom and Pop Art.
Thank you, Mom and Pop Art. And there's a joke in there where basically Homer is encouraging his kids to make him angry, and, you know, Lisa says something Lisa-ish, and Bart says, like, well, I'm flunking math, and last week I was a little bit attracted to Milhouse. Which is a joke that you just, you know, like, you don't think of as being something, that you would hear today. You know what I mean? Like, that's a joke that I don't feel like would be on a season 32 episode of The Simpsons, and obviously that's a different type of equality, but I think equality is equality to some extent, and just, like, looking at, like, the examples, sometimes, while this show is timeless in the points that it makes, and I think that largely it's on the right side of history, yeah, you're 100% right. There's definitely still some times where you look at this and you're just like, wow, we said that in 99? That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, 1999, we're still doing like, basically, look how funny other people around the world talk is like the joke there.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
like, that being said, moment of its time, like, the accents are funny. Can we just talk about, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm against
the Motown joke thing from the Moroccan representative is absolutely
Mongolian.
hilarious. You're correct, Mongolian, excuse me.
I'm glad I learned from Andy that equality was reached the day that Martin Lawrence got his own television show. Like, I'm really glad I learned that today.
You know, and that's exactly what I said, you know, yeah. For sure. Like, definitely.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Have y'all guys seen the last Bad Boys movie, by the way?
Yeah.
It's fucking outstanding.
I love, yeah.
Really?
I thought we saw it together, Richie. Maybe I'm tripping.
No. You probably were.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, and I'm actually stoked for, like minor spoilers, but there's a tag scene that, you know, sets something up for the future, and I'm super stoked to see that, too.
Yeah, I'd watch that. I would.
Yeah.
Especially with, I mean, anyway. Yeah.
Which I'm so glad you brought it up. We can talk Bad Boys on my other podcast some point, because I actually really love that show as well. But that's on hiatus at the moment, so I'll get back to that on another day. Anyway, going back to The Simpsons, we do open up on the International Olympic Committee, as we did briefly discuss. They're actually trying to determine where the next home of the Olympics will be. And you basically got an entire panel of people from all over the world, all making arguments for it being in there, in some cases bribes, for why it should be at their location. But none of that matters, because they received a letter from an 8-year-old little girl from Springfield, and that was enough to convince them to just take it there, despite all the money that was at hand here.
Well, it wasn't enough. It was just enough for the one guy who's the only one in charge of it. But first he had to calm everyone down because, you know, he had to remind them what the Olympics are all about. Giving out medals of beautiful gold, so-so silver, and shameful bronze.
So true.
Which the Olympic Committee sets what city they're going to be at like multiple years in advance. So that's a little bit of a time restraint on this one because they're literally deciding for the Olympics right then and there, like right before it's about to happen.
They would probably be booking like the 2008 Olympic Games or something at this point, or whatever. But actually, that you bring up a kind of interesting point there. This season, we've had episodes that were like specific. They actually aired on both Valentine's Day and was it Easter? Was the other one? I can't remember. I made a lot of jokes. Yeah, Bible stories. That's what it was. But this episode is in 99, and, like, that's in between Olympic years. Like, there's not winter or summer games at this time. I just thought it was, like, kind of odd timing. You think they would do an Olympic episode when it was kind of more relevant to the Olympics.
I think it's just that they had a lot of good stand-up routines going on, and they really wanted to get all those jokes out there with Bart, so they said fuck it and just did it in this one.
His crowd work is impressive. I was taking notes for, my stage work.
I didn't say anything wrong with it.
I realized my mistake is I always go after the Polish people. It's just too much low-hanging fruit. I should really not do that. It's a joke, Andy. It's okay.
I mean, whatever.
So this letter touches this Olympic comedians. I don't know how to say that word.
Yes, sure.
Olympic committee members. They're not comedians.
Homeboy is moved by Lisa's letter, we'll say.
There you go.
It's actually, though, I think is this where they announced that they would have to clean up the town if it was, or they would just have to go and check and see if it was fit for it?
They announced there's a Springfield Olympic mascot challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, homie just says the Olympics are moving there because I can do that. But then it turns out there's going to be like some pre-Olympic process, right?
Yes. Thank you, Andy.
Boom. There we go. It's actually, Kent Brockman makes the announcement. Springfield was shocked today to learn it will host the next Olympics. Economists predict our city will experience the same boom Sarajevo enjoyed after the 1984 games.
Did y'all guys get that joke? Because, I laughed real hard.
Please explain it for the more intelligent members of our listeners.
Well,
He's basically talking to himself.
Yeah.
No.
I'm assuming there's an economic crash.
Let me say it for the other 7 people out there. Sarajevo have good money times after Olympics. No,
that's pretty much true of every Olympics, really. It's not like a good thing usually. The whole Olympic Village just rots to death in many cases after the games leave.
Mm-hmm. First world countries, I think Atlanta did experience some sort of economic reward as a result of holding the Olympics. But a lot of that is simply because A, they had half that infrastructure in place anyways, and B, it was in a place where they're already set for all that capitalism. But small towns, small places, they end up getting a lot of money, but it's all spent in one weird way, and the results of that are always questionable, right? Sarajevo, what happened to Rio? If you want more recent experience, it's the same idea. Right?
Yeah, an Olympics that we were actually alive
and they have these, now large failing structures that don't do anything, and it's anyways.
I think even Beijing had the same issue, and economically speaking, you would have thought they would have been more in line with what did you say, Atlanta?
Mm-hmm. And I might be wrong about Atlanta. Let me just add that that is.
Since you brought it up, though, this kind of goes right in hand with another thing I was going to mention. It's actually from the director's commentary. I was going to save this for the end, but it's fitting. First, let me say the director's commentary on this episode featured Nancy Cartwright, Mike Scully, Ron Hauge, George Meyer, Matt Groening, and Julie Thacker Scully, which this was actually her first credited as the writer episode. She's, she's helped write episodes in the past, but this was her first full script that she wrote. And also, as is common from this season, working on the Simpsons movie, but joining the commentary remotely was Mark Kirkland. But I say all that to say, on the commentary, they brought up the fact that the Olympic International Committee actually got mad at the Simpsons.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? Turns out they didn't really appreciate, again, this is in 99, and they did not really appreciate the idea that it was implied that they were taking bribes to, take the Olympics to various cities. And then just 3 short years later, when the Olympics, the Winter Olympics specifically, went to Salt Lake City, Utah, it was outed, there was a big scandal, and they were in fact caught doing just that. So yeah, it turns out that when you put a bunch of really wealthy members of countries together, there's corruption sometimes.
Well, I mean, I really love that joke about what the Olympics are for, not only because it was hilarious to diss on bronze medals, but also because what are the Olympics for? Like, I mean, no, that's the whole question. Like, what do the Olympics do exactly?
That you see what happens, dude. We didn't have the Olympics in 2020, and look what happened, bro. They clearly keep the world from collapsing.
Oh, well, fair enough. They were keeping fascism in check. Shit.
Yeah, man. If they hadn't have canceled the Olympics back in April, the coronavirus would have launched in July. I got the timeline on that right, yeah?
Damn it, Miles. Damn it, Miles.
All right, let's get back to The Simpsons again.
Okay,
we are one page. Richie was worried he's going to be late to work, and I hate it when Richie's right. So let's not let that happen.
I'm silently freaking out in the background here.
If you have to, dude, just leave. Like, tell us that you're leaving, but like, we'll close the show. I'll have Andy say,
Andy, the Simpsons of you.
We're gonna make it anyway. We always do. We'll run out of shit to say to each other eventually, and then it'll literally just be us reading the script for the last 30 minutes of this podcast. And some people
Andy
now are just like,
chuckling.
could you just start that now, please? Like, we're kind of over you.
Oh, man. So anyways, the cat is in fucking paper mache, y'all.
It's Cabby the Olympic Tabby. To be fair, though, the Springfield Spring is actually a pretty good idea, I think. I mean, that makes sense.
It was a hella cute little mascot, right? Like, so there's a mascot contest, and Homer decides he's going to win, and his first choice of covering the cat in fucking plaster did not, work. And he has the brilliant line where he's like, well, I knew you would hate my first fucking idea anyway.
Yeah, so I came with a second.
And he dropped the F-bomb for sure.
Yeah.
But then, he reveals Springy the Springfield Spring.
I love Bart's line there, dude. It's right after the cat thing, so Bart's like, you didn't use the dog's eyes, did you?
Kind of a fucked up joke.
It kind of is a dark joke, yeah. But that's not the darkest eyeball joke that we'll get in this episode either, which I have a fun note on that, too.
Ow!
Yeah,
Ow!
We're going to talk about it, don't worry.
Okay.
We'll get to the point.
Oh. Well done.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I love, too, speaking of the point, Homer even explains like the benefits of Springy the Springfield Spring. He's like, it's fun for the whole family, and the ends are razor sharp to protect our nation and its interests.
I feel like they should be using that in the current political debates.
Yeah. Man, I like that they have Homer wearing a hard hat to like do like the slow reveal too. He's got Springy on his head, and there is kind of a cute moment on the commentary. Mike Scully, the showrunner in season 10 for this episode, actually asked on the commentary, whose idea was like the Springfield Spring, and then like where did it come from? And the funny part was his wife, who wrote this episode, Julie Thacker, had to remind him that he was the one that came up with the Springfield Spring, and she's pretty sure he got the idea because it's from Springfield. So, like, she kind of both, like, reminded him of his good work and also, like, called him out for it being like, dude, it's not that great of a joke.
But Homer did good here, right?
It seems like he's doing, like, pretty well. It's like he's got you know what? He has some competition with Patty and Selma, though, with, like, Cigarette Man.
Siggy.
That
glue really gives me a what?
This is where we actually see, since the Springfield since the Olympic Committee is coming to Springfield, they go, basically it's like what your parents did anytime you had company, and it's like, all right, we gotta make the house spotless. I don't know, my parents are crazy. Maybe that's not a normal thing. But yeah, you make the house look like it's, for sale. They're essentially doing that with, Springfield in general to try to impress the committee.
Did they have a sign outside the town, too, that said, pickpockets call up reserves?
I didn't catch that if they did.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah, that was on the newspaper. Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of these things probably should have been taken care of. Like, shout out to the Springfield tire fire. May it rest in power.
It's been burning since 1989, which is when the show started.
Mm-hmm. And, really fitting. Do you guys remember the tire fire outside DFW when we were kids that like burned for like a year and a half straight or something?
When would that have been? Because I might not have been here yet for that. That does not sound familiar.
I don't remember that at all.
I was not originally from Texas, so I didn't get here until like middle school.
It was, I don't know, like I would say 90 to 95, that era.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I was in either Phoenix or Topeka, Kansas at that point.
Nice. I mean, not Phoenix or Topeka; those places are shitholes. But yeah. Anyways, I just remember that because like this joke felt special to me because it's like, oh, it feels like home. The tire fire will not go out.
I'm glad that we all have those things that we remember from childhood. I was into the Ninja Turtles myself, but you know, tire fires are cool too.
Tire fires, Ninja Turtles, Lapland dancing. You know, it's all the same.
It's all the same. So there's kind of like a interesting observation in this next scene where it does get announced that Springfield passes. In fact, takes a white glove inspection to their sewers and is like, "Wow, these are the cleanest sewers I've ever seen." Like, which is kind of weird, but also kind of funny.
How did Mr. Burns pull off making his plant look like a solar power plant? I want to know that.
We love the sun.
The sun is number one, y'all.
But they have the children, or like a select number of the children of Springfield, sing a welcome song for the Olympics. And the weird thing, though, is like all of the kids singing are essentially kids that you would expect to get beat up, except for Nelson. Nelson is like super out of place in this lineup of children because it's like Martin and Lisa, a bunch of kids you've never seen before, and then Nelson.
Maybe they thought his like falsetto could carry it.
Maybe.
Yeah, man, he's probably the only bass in the school, and like you're not getting out of choir if you can actually hit the low notes. They're gonna bring you along to go dome, dome, dome.
They got to prepare for regionals, man.
Yeah, they do.
They do have regionals coming up.
Yeah.
And if we win there, then it's on to districts.
I thought we already won the regionals.
Oh shit.
Oh, this isn't a community podcast.
But yeah, they sing a song, children, children, future, future. Basically, children of the future, blah, blah, blah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
I love Homer and Marge are shown in the crowd, and Homer is like, you can see the panic striking. He's like, oh my god, I've never wanted a beer more in my life. But then the queen of queens, Marge, his wife, actually provides one for him, pulls it out of her purse, like she knows it's gonna happen. And Homer's response here is like, oh, I love you, honey.
Are you talking to me or the beer?
To you, my bubbly, long neck, Beechwood aged lover.
To be fair, he was looking at her.
Yeah,
when he said,
was.
I love you, honey. So
it is awkward where you do that thing where you look at somebody else while you're talking to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Or beer. We get the chairman of the board here who actually just declares, or is about to declare, that the Olympics are going to be held right here in Springfield, but Skinner interrupts.
Why, Skinner?
We're going to have to talk about that for a while, honestly.
Wait, we have one more act. Patriotic comedy stylings of Bart Simpson. And the people are like, oh my god, we have to sit through more of this crap, because it's like, you've been to, like if you've ever been to, like, a kid's, like, recital or thing, you're just like, oh, let it end. You're there to see, traditionally, one kid, like, your kid, your niece, your nephew, whatever. And, like, everyone else is just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's a thing that we have to sit here and pretend to like. Sorry, if
I gotta say, Zoom has made that shit so much better.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, like, one, being able to have a beer at your niece's piano recital is really nice. I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bart does some very, like, it's funny because Nancy Cartwright was actually on the panel, and she claims that she really had no memory of doing this at all. Like, she was just like, I don't know if it was a late night or what, but like, I don't have any, like, memories of recording these scenes. But he basically just does some very, very, I'm blanking on the word I want to use, but basically cliche comedy, all like crowd work, reading, like making fun of people's like nationality and stuff. Poland's too easy. Germany, he does an impression of an East German woman. Oh, the one I did like is, hey, are you Russian? Yeah? You drunk yet? I mean, that one still lands today.
But then, the icing on the cake is Homer being the only one laughing.
We're still fighting Russia.
No, the icing on the cake is Homer's the only one laughing, and he says what we're all thinking. And
I'm not thinking that.
Bart's playing to the right crowd, I guess, the one person.
The one. He makes fun of Miss Swiss Miss whoever's representing Switzerland for being Swiss Miss, and tells her to lay off of the cocoa. Oof. Well, I never.
Now I'd like to say one last thing to our Olympic representatives. If there were a medal for most horrible audience, you'd get the gold. Peace out.
And he actually does like a mic drop, but you can see everybody in the committee is just like horrified and angry. And that is actually enough to cost Springfield the Olympics. Bart ended that dream, which again, to be fair, he did them a favor, as we've already talked about, because more than likely it would not have been a good thing for Springfield. It does not seem like they have the politicians in place that are either not corrupt or intelligent enough to make that a successful event.
Or Bart did such a terrible job that the one good committee member, the guy that brought it to Springfield, retired after that day, and then all the corruption seeped in.
Maybe that's it, yes.
That's what it was.
Go ahead.
I think we need to talk about how this has to be a tactical move on the part of Skinner, right? Like,
he knew
whatever excuses he might give, right? Like, we're 10 seasons in. How many times has Bart fucked over Seymour Skinner's life at this point? Count them all. Like, 9-ish? Hasn't he already gotten him fired, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, he has.
Almost killed, too.
Almost killed? So, like, the idea that Skinner is not using Bart intentionally as a weapon against the Olympics, he's got to know what's going to happen here, right? So, which brings the question, why does Seymour Skinner hate fun?
That's a good point, Andy, because maybe Bart was his ace in the hole. I think he went with Nelson first.
That explains
that'll for
Nelson's
surely
awkward
work.
Yeah, Nelson's not going to sit around and do this lame-ass Children of the Future song. He's going to ruin it in some manner.
And Bart was the backup in case that plan fell through, and it did, and Skinner was nervous. He knew his plan was going to fall apart, but then came Bart.
I feel like we're all collectively Charlie from It's Always Sunny with a big roll of red yarn right now, but it's fine. I'm into it.
Well, I mean, that's what literary analysis is. Yeah, stay with us, right? I mean... Yeah. So
Chalmers, though, regardless of if it was intentional or not, it definitely made the Olympic Committee angry. And Chalmers is ready to scold Skinner here, but Bart actually wants to. Bart kind of intervenes, and he's like, "Hey, Chalmers, where are you from?"
Well, I was born in Queens, went to Ball States, then made the move to Intercourse, Pennsylvania. Why do you ask?
And you can see, Bart has that face, he's, eager to, jump in, and Skinner literally, grabs him and puts his hand over his mouth and is like, no. Don't worry, sir. I'll teach these children some respect for their town. I'm assigning each of you 20 hours of community service.
Intercourse?
Is that, Ralph, being philosophical moment, Andy?
Most certainly, right? Always. Philosophical Wiggum is here for us, right? Ralph seems in this moment to be asking not for the sexual definition, but for the dialogue, right? He wants to have an intercourse of ideas in this moment, and he's desperately bemoaning the lack of an opportunity to gain this international's perspective.
Andy, we learned a few episodes ago in the Bible Stories one that when Ralph died in the episode, he's only 5, so we thought that was an interesting idea that maybe he's actually skipped a few grades.
Which would play. Yeah, we actually mentioned that would play into your philosophy idea that he's actually a very gifted younger child. But I do love this next exchange because after Skinner makes this announcement, Chalmers has one more thing to add.
I'm on my way to my vacation in Lake Titicaca.
And you know that meme?
I think it's fun of that.
There's that meme that has like the dog. I think it's actually a husky that's making like a gotcha face. Bart makes that face. Like Simpsons did it. Bart makes that face when Chalmers says Titicaca, and Skinner is immediately like grabbing him and pulling him back again. Like no. And I love that Chalmers is just completely naive to this entire idea. That, there's anything at all that could be laughed at about what he said.
This also plays into Andy's idea, too, though, because Skinner is in mind enough to know that Bart's about to rib him for that. So Skinner knows exactly what Bart's doing, but at this point, he's like, nope, rein him in. He's already done enough.
We've already done enough. We've got the mission accomplished. Yeah, that's fair. They do point out on the commentary, most people assume that Intercourse, Pennsylvania was just made up for the joke, but it is in fact a real place.
Of course the Simpsons writers would use real things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, hearing Alex Trebek say Lake Titicaca on Jeopardy is just one of the small joys that everyone should experience in life.
Is there a joke here I'm not getting? Like, why is Titicaca funny?
No reason.
Only when Val Kilmer writes about it in his poetry.
It's just his crisp accent.
That
I find so satisfying.
That's fair. That's very. Yeah, he's got a very calming voice.
Yeah, he does.
No.
Shit boobs.
There it is. Oh, I get it now.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's terrible. I should be a better person than that, but I'm not. I'm just not.
You're a professor at a university, sir. Let's just make sure we point that out real quick.
This is why I'm glad no one listens to this. I'm gonna get untenured so fucking fast. Yep. Y'all don't even know.
That's literally, dude, this is just a really long con. That was just a rib that we've been playing on you now for 4+ years.
You're not even releasing me.
This has nothing to do with The Simpsons. This is just to get you to say
every year you're just recording me say hateful stuff. Someday. Right?
It's our Ocean's 11 of you.
With modern day editing too, I can really get most of what I need out of what you've recorded so far.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
What? Andy endorses Trump? What?
Oh, too far. That's hateful. No. All right, let's dive back into it. We hear that Skinner is, in fact, going to start assigning everybody community service, and he's actually, dropping them off various places. Martin is in charge of community service at the inner city basketball courts, where he's going to try to unite street gangs. But as soon as he's dropped off by himself with a basketball, he's like all gung-ho, and then gunshots singe through the ball.
Shots and skins, let's hustle!
I want to point out, this is actually the most racist moment in the episode. Weirdly enough.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. Anyways.
There's another scene immediately after where Skinner's like, Mouse, you like the beach, don't you?
Who doesn't?
Great! You're gonna be picking up all this medical waste. And then, as he starts to collect it, he immediately stabs himself. And Skinner's like, yeah, just keep going. You'll prick yourself with the antidote eventually.
No.
Bart is concerned. He knows that Skinner is not going to make this easy on him, and he even kind of scared. He's scared as he asks, what are you going to do to me?
Bart, not all community service is gang warfare and dangerous infection. And to illustrate that point, here's where you'll be working.
And they pull up next to the Fireworks Candy and Puppy Dog store.
No. Next to it.
And see that apparently this entire time, next to the Springfield Retirement Castle, has been the Fireworks Candy and Puppy Dog store. But Bart will be volunteering at the old folks' home.
Settle a bet, boy.
Dun, dun.
Oh. So real quick, from the commentary, I do want to bring up one more point. Julie Thacker talked about the inspiration for this episode, and it very much came from real life because, her and her husband, Mike Scully, the showrunner for this season, have 5 children, and their school district decided this, or like a year prior or whatever, that they were going to implement a policy where each student had to do X amount of community service before they would be allowed to pass to the next grade. And for like a full-time working parent with like kids that had other activities that they were also doing, this was like a completely ludicrous like thing that they were very like upset about, obviously having thrust upon them like that when they had young kids or whatever. But they actually did find out that they could all kind of do community service together at a retirement center. So a lot of the episode was drawn from that real life experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. And one thing I'll miss, just so I can put this away, actually, it's the last note I have from the commentary. The Simpsons writers were aware that the Olympic Committee was very litigious, and that's why they changed the Olympic ring significantly. Whenever you see them, it's very clearly supposed to be the Olympic rings, but if you look at it, a lot of things are changed so that they would not be attacked legally.
And they definitely seem to have a stick up their butts too, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I imagine they had made that decision long before they, were, anything was said to them about the bribery thing I mentioned earlier. But that does bring us to the end of our first act, and we actually come back for Act 2 at the Springfield Retirement Castle, where we hear Zippity Doodah playing.
Right.
And it makes the old people kind of walk around like zombies.
They're coming after Bart, too.
But he's running away like very horror movie-esque here, and he actually does the thing where he bumps into something that we see, and when he turns, it's an entire cart of false teeth that start to chatter at him as they fall.
It's just a fun little play on like a horror movie moment or two here.
Yeah, you also see 2 old women who start to like be like, "Oh, look at the youngster," blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah, indeed.
There's an older lady that asks Bart to help her, snap her support hose to her garter. But fortunately, Bart is saved by the bell when the nurse announces recreation time. He thinks that's going to give him a chance to escape, but the lady's like, "Hey, where do you think you're going?"
They don't pay him enough. Oh, wait, they're not paying him at all.
Not at all. I will point out, too, here, the nurse in this retirement center is very much drawn to be in the style of Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest, and we will see another reference to that movie with the Native American character that Richie already referenced at the top of the show. What are the odds of that happening? Okay. Bart, trying to make his escape, actually wanders into the recreation room where he runs into his sister Lisa calling bingo numbers. And he's all like, "Oh no, Lisa, they got you too?"
Got me? What are you talking about? I've been volunteering here for a year.
And immediately hear like the old people in the crowd getting like, "Yeah, we want our numbers. I've got a nice diagonal going here."
B3.
You sunk my battleship.
G52.
You sunk my battleship.
Oh, I got a bingo. What do I win?
I love that they just keep going back to the "you sunk my battleship" joke too, though.
Yep.
Grandpa,
if it ain't broke.
Grandpa is actually the big winner, and he gets a banana. Yes, a whole one.
That's the prize, a banana?
Bart, you can tell, is actually kind of sympathetic towards the people in the retirement center here. He's like, "That's boring. Like, who would want that?" Though Lisa is trying to defend them by saying they're mushy, so that prevents choking and promotes regularity.
They're not babies, Lisa. Give them something fun, like cigars or booze.
They tried to give them eggnog at Christmas, but it led to widespread deshawling.
That's what you get for wearing such tight little shawls.
Speaking of Me Too.
Oh, no.
Okay, 4 p.m. nap time.
You let them, or you tell them when to sleep?
And this is when Lisa's like, shh, don't wake them up. We're trying to vacuum them. And so apparently they vacuum the elderly folks while they're napping. And I love this gag so much. Bart figures out that if you, or am I getting ahead here? Is this where it's...
No.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
right.
he's like suctioning Grandpa's skin, like the flabbiness on the back of his neck. And it's like, Grandpa Homer. Grandpa Homer.
What he doesn't realize is that he is the third version of that.
Yeah.
Like, you're the young version, asshole. It's coming for you someday.
But what happens if you vacuum Bart's face?
I think you get Maggie's face.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Nurse Ratched says, like, don't play with their faces.
No, she says don't play with the
faces. You're right. You're right.
That's just like a subtle difference there, but it makes it so much more funny.
So Bart actually heads home and is discussing his first day of forced volunteerism.
That place sucks. The nurses don't let Grandpa do anything. They practically chew his food for him.
And I love that Homer's reaction to this is not anything other than jealousy because he has to chew his own food. Oh,
working my ass off here.
Good steak, honey.
Oh, shit.
Lisa points out that the elderly aren't like you or me. They thrive on consistency, predictability, and a life of no surprises.
Incidentally, that's exactly like me.
I like that, like, basically they are in a roundabout way if you, like, did a hybrid of Homer's personality and Marge's, because Marge loves, like, mundane predictability, and Homer, when he's not getting into, like, harebrained adventures, really just wants to sit on his couch and be left alone and do as little as possible.
Ding dong.
It's the delivery man at the door, and this actually gets Homer excited, because a giant box arrives, and it turns out it's full of springs, specifically 1,000 springs that he was planning to sell for the Springfield Olympics, and he's not concerned at all that he'll be able to offload 1,000 of these things, even though the games are now in Shelbyville.
Fucking
What could
Shelbyville.
go wrong?
Why, the idiot population alone should account for more sales than 1,000. We cut back to the retirement center where we see that the retirees are watching a edited version, specifically edited for the retirement home, or edited for seniors, excuse me. So we get a version of Gone with the Wind where instead of, oh, Rhett, where will I go? What'll I do?
Frankly, my dear, I love you. Let's remarry.
And, like, everyone's like, oh, what a lovely ending. That's so sweet. But I love Bart's response so much here. He's immediately like, they cut out the best word.
Didn't that movie used to have a war in it?
Come on up. Get up. You've been warm, mole man. Oh, my goodness.
Andy's been broken.
Oh, no. What's this? I was honestly thinking, wait. It features Gone with the Wind. That might be the most racist part of this episode.
Not the seniors version. Very little actually happens in that one.
Oh, they left the racism in, bro. Don't worry about
that.
That's nostalgic. It's nostalgic for the
does not
seniors.
disturb
Yeah,
the elderly.
it'll bring them back to their childhood. It's not. You can't get mad at me for that joke. It's not my fault that people were super racist.
I didn't say I was mad at you.
I felt like the groan there was targeted. All right.
Targeted groan. Groan targeting.
Marge's superpower.
All us Mexicans are doing.
All right, so that should be a good transition to imagination time. I don't know why. Pick yourself on a beautiful sailboat. And Lisa's just basically, she's got them all sitting in like really just folding chairs with life preservers on, and she's like giving them an imagination cruise. Can't you just feel the sea breeze in your hair or scalps?
Hey, I hear a foghorn. Boring.
Come on, Bart. We don't want to overstimulate these people. They just had pudding.
No.
What is the result of too much stimulus plus pudding? I want to know.
Yeah, especially... No, you really don't. It's bad.
No, never mind. I don't do it.
You
They don't have
know,
enough
you
bathrooms
got
for
the
that.
joke.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Homer back at the Simpsons home is in full
No,
on...
that's Skinner's home.
Oh, he's now in door-to-door phase. He's trying to push these springs. So he actually goes over and Agnes answers the door. He's like, "Hello, little girl. Is your mommy home? You'll need to ask her for $5 to buy Mr. Bouncy Best Friend."
I know you. Your little smart mouth boy cost this town the Olympics.
Slap!
Slap!
And then Skinner's like, "Who is it, mother?"
It's Bart Simpson's father.
And, oh my god, Skinner is brutal in this scene, dude. He's like, "I'll be right down." And the next thing we know, we just see, like, all we see is Skinner's arm, his fist specifically, coming out of the front door and punching Homer in the face repeatedly. And the springs that Homer's wearing all over just make him bounce right back up into place.
This plays on Andy's bit earlier, so Skinner's trying to keep everybody hush-hush. He thinks maybe that Homer's onto him about how he sabotaged everything by putting Bart in a comedic stand-up role, so he's just trying to nip this in the bud, so to speak.
Interesting.
But he also
That's some
knows
serious
Homer's
assault, for
Mhm.
sure.
It's like I said, like, it seems like excessive at a certain point. You're just like, damn, Skinner. It's getting some
And
rage
it's the
out.
first point in this
Unbreakable.
episode where you're like, wow, that's oddly violent.
but oddly hilarious because the springs, do their job.
Speaking of oddly violent and oddly hilarious, we do get to this next sequence, which is probably the most gruesome moment in The Simpsons to date, frankly. Even when, like, Homer falls down the ravine multiple times. But since door-to-door sales don't go well for Homer, Homer decides he's gonna, like, rebrand his springs into, like, novelty items, like a can of nuts that, when you open it, shoots a spring out at you, like a fake snake.
With hilarious results.
Only when Lenny opens this can up, the spring bounces directly into his eye. And
Into his eyeball.
it's awful. Like, it's like hooked onto, like, his eyelid, like the underside of it. And
Not any.
and he's like stumbling around, and then Mo actually is like, you're gonna have to leave.
Oh, here you go, Mo. Have some nuts.
And then same thing happens to Mo, only this time, Mo and Lee actually bump into each other and get attached to one another via spring by the eye. It is absolutely awful.
It's
Just don't walk away from me. Come closer.
So,
man.
this is, they talked about on the commentary two things on this. The first one is they mentioned that they think this was like the first major thing that Lenny gets in his eye, but that actually becomes a trope throughout the Simpsons series that we'll come across other times, where Lenny always seems to be suffering eye injuries in various moments of The Simpsons. And they think that Julie Thacker was the first one, or Julie Thacker Scully at this point, was the first person to make that a thing. But they were talking about that on the commentary. But the really interesting thing I thought was, while this episode was still being produced, they were going through sound effects, and Matt Groening himself actually saw the footage and said, it's funny, but it would be funnier if the noise was more squishy. So they actually came up with that, like, kind of like, as it went into the eyeball sound. Which is horrific to talk about, but he's not wrong. It was funny.
But I love that Mo tells Lenny not to walk away from him, and Lenny keeps walking further away.
And then they're on his spring, so they keep getting... It's like a Chinese finger trap.
Oh, man, I completely forgot to say, earlier, too, when Homer receives the crate full of springs, I like how he opened the crate.
Oh, yeah. He uses a family
the photo
portrait and then
frame.
throws it away.
Yeah.
Like with a
Like a
crashing
crowbar.
break. Which it would actually make sense for him to break it first, then use the glass to cut it open, but hey, whatever.
Fair enough.
We cut back to the retirement center after that horrific eyeball sequence, and Lisa is still leading it's basically like a group meditation type of activity, but she's calling about, now we're getting into pork, and Look, look up there on the dock. It's everybody's childhood dog. I see Petey and Blackie and Schnoodle.
Oh no, pirates!
Pirates?
Ahoy, mateys, it's me, Long John Bart Silver, and I'm gonna rip you a new IV hole.
Lisa's kind of annoyed at this at first. She's like trying to Bart, what are you doing? Stop.
I'm just trying to liven things up around here. These people need to ride motorcycles, play rocking guitars like the old people on TV.
So Bart is on to something here to some extent. Like he's, I think this is genuinely a moment in Bart's head or heart even, that he really does want to help these people. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily got, the best of intentions all the time, but I see in this moment that he actually does. He's like, you're treating like these adult people like babies when they're still adult humans that probably want to go have some fun.
I really don't think that it's Bart, genuinely trying to be helpful here. I think he's just really, really bored and watches too much TV, and he's trying to match real life to TV life in his head.
I mean, it can be both, right?
I'd say it could be boredom leading to philanthropy.
Well, I mean, I love the way that they acknowledge that, how we actually treat old people in America is really different from the way most old people are portrayed on TV, right? Like, old people on TV are out, learning to play guitar and, going to wine tastings and shit, and old people in real America are, for the most part, in retirement castles, right?
Or walking the mall, either way.
Or walking the mall, which is itself a retirement castle, what is it even for anymore other than that? Do malls have other purposes? Unclear.
No, just that. That's the only place you can get really good pretzels.
Fair. And really bad pizza.
There's a reason the Sbarro's is always right next to the restroom. That's a fact.
That's fair.
Anyway, back to this. Sorry, we got distracted with malls. But yes, you're not wrong. There is definitely a difference in the way things are depicted on television. And I think that, while obviously The Simpsons is very much a parody to some extent, there's probably a lot of truth. I mean, the reason that some of these jokes land are because we are familiar with this setting.
And you killed us.
I guess just me. That's fair.
I think we lost Andy there.
Andy, are you with us still? Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to also eat a cheeseburger in secret.
So glad we have your full attention.
By the way. So much for my secret fucking cheeseburger. to be fair, I've only got 2 bites left, so I feel like this is a C+ in cheeseburger disguise.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly it is what it is.
But again, to back Andy up here, you did state at the beginning of the podcast that by the last 30 minutes, it would just be us reading the script. So
he thought that, yeah. He thought his part was over at this point. Get through the second act, man, and then you can totally phone it in for the third.
Oh, we're not even through the second act yet.
Don't worry, it's a really long third act, Richie. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, so this is actually where we see Bart gets his idea to break him out. He actually sees this. It's the character. What's his name? You called me it at the beginning.
Oh, we get Chief Break Everything?
Chief Break Everything, which is actually a parody of a character in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But in this case, they make a joke at that because Bart assumes that he's a patient or a resident, I guess, of the hospital, but he's just there to pass out pamphlets about something.
About legalizing Indian gambling.
There you go. I thought it'd be better if you said it.
Oh, well, fair enough.
No, I just couldn't remember. I'm just kidding. I don't live here. I'm dropping off Indian casino pamphlets. Vote yes on Prop 217. But then he leaves by breaking the window out next to the water cooler, which is how, in the movie, the character breaks out of the facility, I believe.
The door was open. Chief Break Everything.
But Bart declares, this is our chance. Come on, people. You don't want to stay in a place where they vacuum you while you sleep.
They do what now? Oh, wait, that was Jasper. They do what?
So Bart takes his the residents out through the window, and Lisa's like, Bart, no! He's stolen the elderly!
Which she didn't see it happen, so why did she just assume that Bart stole the elderly?
Because she knows
it's very
Bart?
Presumptuous.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But
then just been in the bathroom.
We also get the chief just breaks another window randomly at this point, it seems. Because he forgot his hat.
Yeah, he forgot his hat. Got to come back in. That makes sense.
Second window, yeah.
Yep.
That actually does bring us to the end of our second act, and we open up our third act with a montage of the residents of the Springfield Retirement Castle playing in the streets and dancing, running around, all to the song Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles, which they actually paid for. That's impressive in its own right for this episode.
No doubt.
This
is a sweet montage. Can we just talk about that? This is a sweet-ass montage.
I like it a lot.
It has everything you want from a montage. It has old ladies doing sweet half-pipe tricks in a pool.
Oh my god, dude, the wheelchair in the pool, they basically treat like an empty pool like a skateboarder would, essentially, but with wheelchairs.
And it's like, why is that not a thing? Already the Paralympics are dope as fuck. And if you don't watch the Paralympics, they're way better than the Olympics. Facts. But, I would watch the shit out of that. Just saying.
I enjoy the X Games, so yeah, I would see that as just another platform to do cool tricks and shit, and I'm down.
Yeah, exactly.
They literally make Bart get the old people to behave the way Bart thought old people behaved in television.
I feel like if we give it a few years, we might legitimately get Tony Hawk's Pro Wheelchair. No? Just me? Okay.
Just you, but still, I giggled for you.
Thanks. I would play that game for what it's worth.
Any giggling for you?
What?
Nothing.
I missed it, sorry. Alright, yep. But yes, I agree. It is a great montage. We see old people doing things that we would not expect them to do, having sword fights, broomsticks. It's reminiscent in some ways of the that Twilight Zone where the old people essentially become kids and play outside and whatnot, but they don't actually physically turn into kids like they do in the Twilight Zone. They just mentally seem to be rejuvenated.
Yeah, they do. So mission success, Bart.
Yeah, and again, it does seem like a genuinely nice thing that Bart has done. And he actually notices that, unlike the mental boat trip that Lisa guided them on, that Captain McAllister is there and actually is offering a real boat trip for just $5 each. So he basically rounds them up and is like, come on, guys, how would you like to go on an actual cruise?
Oh, yeah, okay. Ooh.
But Captain McAllister is upset because, there's not a looker among them.
Which doesn't make sense in a little while.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk on that.
Yeah.
Bart yells out, full speed ahead! Damn the torpedoes!
What did he say? Put on our tuxedos.
I want some taquitos.
I want some taquitos. That would be dope.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a wrong time for taquitos, honestly. If I just finished a plate of taquitos and somebody was like, you want some taquitos? I'd probably be like, yeah.
I mean, sure.
I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems fine. You notice no one does all-you-can-eat taquitos, because, that would be... It's a non-profitable concept.
Well, back at the Simpsons home, Homer is specifically trying to turn his springs into a profit concept. And Homer asks his wife, he actually says, welcome to the kitchen of tomorrow. Today, Marge, how much would you pay for a self-flipping hamburger pan?
Nothing.
Don't answer yet. Watch how easy it is to flip hamburgers with the help of God's greatest creation, the spring. And we actually see, this goes as well as you would expect.
I didn't realize God created springs.
Yeah. Created everything, Richie. Didn't you read the Bible? They made it a Simpsons episode 3 episodes ago.
I watched the shortened version there.
You should know that was the part in between Exodus and creation. The spring.
Part 2.
But yeah, Homer uses the springs to flip the pan. It does not go well. He gets oil splattered.
It does.
He gets oil splattered everywhere.
The burgers land on the other side, homie. Like,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, you know what? Fair is fair. It does technically do the job.
There are some side effects.
Technically correct. The best kind of correct.
The best kind of correct. It technically works. That's all the lawyers need to know. It does require that you have a fire extinguisher on hand, though. Let's just say that as a disclaimer. That tells you how well it went.
I mean, it's a prototype.
But Marge actually puts out the curtains, and then the pan, and then Homer.
Yes, yeah. Order of operations here.
Yeah.
Is this after? I don't know. I was wondering if maybe they got their curtains from Ned Flanders, because we all know how much he loves those.
Purple drapes.
Marge is concerned, to be fair, though. Are you okay?
Some second-degree burns, but some first-class burgers.
Marge has had enough. Marge has had enough. She wants him to get rid of the springs.
But you haven't seen the baby of tomorrow.
And this might be my favorite moment in the whole fucking episode, because Homer has attached springs all over Maggie, and he basically is playing basketball against his wife, but instead of basketball and a hoop, he's dribbling the baby and shooting her into the high chair. And to his credit, the form on that jumper is damn near perfect.
Like the last episode, him and Bart have good shots. I mean, they're accurate.
But Marge, even though Maggie is safe and lands in her high chair without a problem after being dribbled and crossed over on Marge.
Yeah. Probably just because she got shook out her shoes, if you want to be honest. Homer broke her ankles up. And, she's just kind of mad.
She's salty.
Homer has game.
She is
That's
salty.
The truth.
She wants those springs out of the house today, though.
Oh, poor Homer.
So Homer has a plan to get rid of them. It's, you flush one down, or 999 springs. You flush one down, it swirls around, 999 springs to flush down.
You got there eventually, Miles.
Thanks, man. Reading and singing at the same time are difficult. It's like chewing gum and walking. I'm just not capable.
You're not flushing the springs down the toilet, are you?
Of course not! 996 springs.
Doesn't he say something like, give me a little credit, Marge? God.
Probably, yeah. But and then we hear the toilet flush and metal scraping sounds too. It's very clear. It's very obvious what's happening. We cut back to the party boat where we hear dance music playing and the old folks are having a hell of a good time. I think this is where they're playing limbo and just really going nuts. One of them even says, I haven't felt this relaxed and carefree since I was watch commander at Pearl Harbor.
That was Abe, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah, you're right.
Bart, to be fair, after World War II, that's been a pretty cush job.
Fair, yeah. It's been a long time now of just sitting at your desk and playing with your phone.
Let sleeping ships lie.
So Bart grumbles about not having Russian subs in the area when Lisa walks up and is demanding, are you crazy? We've got to get these old folks back to the old folks' home.
I thought Bart saw her through the telescope thing too, and he's like, sea hag!
Monster! Yeah, sea hag, that's it. No way, Lise, they're finally having some fun.
How low can I go?
Which that line's fun for later. They'll do a callback to it. But yeah, apparently the limbo is a little bit painful at that age. And he's like, oh, that's it. That's as low as I can make it.
That's it.
Lisa's starting to come around here too. She's like, hey, maybe you're right. They don't even seem to care that it's medication time. And it's her fault for mentioning that out loud.
Medication time? Hot dog! I want the blue ones! Which blue ones exactly?
Oh.
Hey, they are out and about having some fun after all, I'm just saying.
This is before that, though.
Was it?
Yeah, that didn't exist yet.
Really? In 1999?
Well, we'll
I
go
feel
on
like I've
Andy here.
seen, I
So
feel like I've
Simpsons
seen
did
those
it
commercials my
before
whole
they
life.
did
but
it?
maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Oh, you're right. You are correct. I was wrong.
We'll say 1994.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely 96.
Okay.
Released for sure and on the market by 98.
Wow.
And we're in
There you
99
go.
lands.
Yeah, so totally
Yeah,
wrong.
I
That
appreciate
was
it.
a bad
I
means-
appreciate it if you don't argue with me about my medication, Andy.
But that means the Simpsons were writing about it in 98 and may have not known that it existed yet.
Are you trying to make a case for Simpsons did it? I think that's.
I already said it. Simpsons did it before they did it.
So this is where Bart makes a case that these people should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. It's, wrong to keep them locked up. He wants to see them set free. No more nap time and no more bingo. You can do whatever you want.
I sunk my battleship.
Somebody's like, let's play bingo. And then Jasper says, you sunk my battleship. To great laughs.
Anybody want to talk about how Lisa caught up to this huge boat in a paddle boat?
I mean, if you'd like to mention it, it seems like you have something to say.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Tressler.
Lisa caught up to the ship in a battle boat. Damn it! You guys ruin everything.
Battle boat?
I'm just gonna go ahead and go
That
to work.
sounds dope.
I know.
I want a battle boat.
I don't want a taquito.
But unfortunately, things are not going well on this party boat all of a sudden because they actually crash into Burns' yacht, which there's another funny moment here where Burns is laying on a couch and Smithers is drawing him very, very much in style of the movie Titanic that came out just a year before, I believe. Maybe two. Still very much in the pop culture, spectrum at this point. But I do like the joke here. It's a bit dated, but funny at the time. When Burns is like, and you drew all of your military buddies like this?
Yeah, until I got,
discharged
from the Navy.
The joke is at the time you weren't allowed to be gay in the military.
I mean, everyone was gay in the Navy, let's be honest.
It's true. It was the opposite there.
A guy I knew, for sure, was in the Navy and then wanted to get out and was like, I'm gay. And they're like, yeah, we know. And he's like, no, I want to leave. And they're like, fine, God.
I mean, does seem like a convenience out, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
no? Okay.
I don't know the percentage of people who use that as an out, but whatever. Moving forward.
Moving on. The boats collide, and it actually seems like the party boat is going to go down. Lisa's upset with the captain. She's like, how could you miss seeing that other boat?
Arr, I have 2 glass eyes.
And he taps both of his eyes. Click, click.
But he said earlier, not a looker in the bunch. It doesn't hold up.
Maybe he felt all of their faces as they boarded.
That's creepy.
Well, that's blind people see people. I don't know. Fuck off.
Yeah, but then they would know that the captain of their boat was
exactly
fucking blind, and even Bart Simpson is probably not that reckless.
That's fair. Yeah. All right. I'll
but
give you
Miles
that one.
said fuck off, and that's exactly what he was trying to do.
Ah, nice. Bart's upset though. It's not fair after all. He's not supposed to die now. I'm supposed to die in a foolish motorcycle stunt at the age of 15.
Real talk.
But this is where Jack LaLanne comes in. He's like, hey, you're not dead yet, you pudgy little pisser. I don't know what a pisher is.
I think you're in the same boat as Bart. Jack LaLanne!
Don't worry, I'll save you the Jack LaLanne way. And he puts a rope in his mouth, jumps in the water, and he's trying to get to the front of the boat. But the boat actually breaks, and he saves the part.
No, he's not trying. He's doing it for a little while. He's pulling. That was his whole shtick.
He's pulling the boat with a rope, but it breaks in half, and he pulls away the part that doesn't have any of the people on it.
He's kind of uh-oh, and just keeps going.
No.
But
what the fuck do you want from
the
Jack
one
LaLanne?
thing,
There's only so much you can do.
The one thing that everybody can agree on is this is all Bart's fault.
Get him!
I blame him!
He killed us all!
I want some taquitos!
Leave him alone! Sure, Bart's responsible for our deaths, but he gave us the most fun we've had in 20 years! So before we go to our watery graves, I think we should...
The boat sinks below the surface of the water. We no longer can hear a... but suddenly, the boat pops right back up again.
Whoa!
And then it continues to sink, and then pop up, and then sink,
Whoa!
and then pop up. Lisa's the one that's like, what the heck's going on here? And we cut to the bottom of the ocean, river, wherever they're at. Homer has been dumping his springs. We can see them collecting at the bottom, and the boat is bouncing off of them. It just so happens to be perfectly placed.
Down 135 springs.
And we can still see them coming through the pipe as Homer continues to flush them.
As a younger audience viewer, I loved this tie-in for what it was worth. I thought this is awesome. I like the almost reset, not even though it's not a reset, but it is
a reset. It totally is a reset. It both gets rid of the springs that we need to get rid of, and it saves the day for this otherwise deadly cruise.
Oh, right. Way to spring into action to back me up there, Miles.
Got you, homie.
Word. Obviously, we are dealing with a brief moment of eco-criticism, right? As, first off, the Simpsons make it clear to us that what you put into, what you think you are disposing of and flushing away only becomes part of our natural world, that we are altering our natural world in ways that defy the laws of physics. And while we may get a temporary reprieve from this, as is represented by the upward bounces, the best we can ever hope for is a cycle of chaos.
I like that. Yeah, you should put that in your book.
Yeah, for sure.
Or just write it in the back of that Val Kilmer poetry.
I was going to say,
so
I think Val Kilmer already took care of that.
A lot of people are going to check out that book, Andy. You're going to get a lot more traction that way.
Well, I mean, good luck. That's what, it was $600 fucking dollars.
How the hell do you charge that much for a book, honestly? That's more than a textbook costs.
I mean, it's obvious, more than there are only 1,000 of them ever made, and I think Val Kilmer signed them all. So they have a Hollywood collectible market. But yeah, I couldn't believe it at all.
That's definitely an investment that will continue to financially benefit you in the future.
Well, I mean, if I weren't donating it to charity.
Yeah. It's not too late, man.
She's really happy that you gave her that book.
Yeah, you don't actually have to give it to anybody. I mean, and I'm not sure the exact details of your fundraising campaign, but I'm very suspect that nobody is ever going to look into it.
I mean, that's fair, but all the same, I'm gonna do the morally right thing.
It's the first time for
be
everything.
Lisa, don't be Bart. That's the moral of this story.
So we see that the Springfield police arrive in a helicopter, and they actually use a harness to rescue everybody off of the boat. Wiggum also complains that there is not a looker in the bunch. But the last two people to be taken off the boat are Bart and Abe, who share the harness as they're being carried by the helicopter. And there's kind of a really sweet moment here where Abe actually asks his grandson, "So, you working tomorrow at the home, Bart?"
Well, I finished my community service.
Oh, right.
But I could swing by after school. I'll bring a limbo stick.
And Abe starts to hum the limbo tune again, and he's like, he starts to shake the harness.
Oh, low can I go?
And as the credits come over the screen, we actually hear a splash in the water. Too low. And that brings us to the end of our third act and to the episode, The Old Man and the Sea Students. But instead of the normal black screen that we usually see, we actually see like a pseudo album cover of A Hard Day's Night. But with the Simpsons, it's called a Bart's Day Night. And it's Can't Buy Me Love that plays once again. If you're going to pay for the rights to that song, you're going to use it, is how I
Yeah. Use it twice, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
What was the cost of that?
It could not have been cheap, I imagine. They didn't really talk about it, to be honest. I was a little bit surprised because they usually mention it. But anyways, Andy, first of all, thank you again so much for joining us today and for keeping the streak alive. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, either about The Simpsons, about this episode, or, just philosophize a little bit? Whatever, words are tricky. You go now.
Well, I definitely enjoyed this episode, but I don't know. I feel like it seems worth mentioning that, like, in a lot of ways, this, at this point, is a different show than the one we started watching 10 seasons ago, right? At this point, we've made a transition into something that feels a lot more like Family Guy does, in that the jokes are more often purely non sequitur and, like, come from a lot of angles. Homer has officially been transitioned into a full-on buffoon rather than, a working everyman who has problems we all can understand. And I don't know that I'm saying it's worse, but it's definitely different. And, like, that transition is kind of fascinating to me. Like, first off, because I don't think The Sims could have stayed on the air for 25 years if they kept doing what they were doing for the first few seasons, right? I think they needed to evolve in the way that they have, and I think this kind of episode and maybe this season kind of demonstrate that transition.
Interesting. We've talked a little bit about just slight changes in that. Like, we've talked about, for instance, the opening episode of the season was one that featured a cell phone being used. And that's kind of like, just a strange thing that, like, happens to keep up with the times, even though the characters themselves don't age. You mentioned Family Guy. I think it's interesting that you brought that up because this would have been in the era now that I believe Family Guy is, if it's not out yet, it would be coming out real soon.
It's the first season. They started in 1999. I just Googled it just to get perspective.
So they would be hitting into that.
Season 1.
Were you about to say something else, Andy?
No.
Oh, excuse me. I think that's a valid point. And I mean, we always talk about the Golden Age on here. That's such a hard thing to argue and define, but I will say that I still feel across the board, this season as a whole has been very good and really fun to review. I still don't see the decline or the fall or the crash of The Simpsons that a lot of people claim happens at some point here in these teen seasons. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's happened yet.
I would agree with that. I mean, we've been saying it all year. It's still fun, I think. It's just they've been given a little bit more zaniness for sure, but that's just kind of...
I noticed when the pop culture references, which is a very Family Guy thing, like, for instance, I think to add to Andy's original point for this episode, that Titanic joke felt very non-Simpsons-ish in a way. Like, it was like kind of a weird, like, homage to something that was really popular at that time. And maybe it's just because of my age that movie is, I would consider, timeless, if you will. Like, it's a reference that you always get, but I don't know that that's universally true for younger people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think that joke no longer makes it. I think it's just lost.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
lost at sea.
And that's something that is not usually something we say about The Simpsons. Because, I mean, when we look back to your point, like at Homer being the everyday man, I think those themes are more universal even through today's struggles.
Right on.
Other than, like, the added, like, fall of democracy and pandemic and all that good stuff. But, like other normal struggles.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that.
Anything else that you want to add, Andy?
No, that's got me, man.
Richie, how about you or that book of yours, sir?
Well, just another classic Bart and Grandpa interaction that ends in some form of boat chase or being at sea.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. I was going to say the same thing. Really, really funny that they always seem to get into adventures at sea together. I will also say that we did miss two things I meant to mention from IMDb. When Chief Wiggum is escorting the mice out of town, he calls one of them Rizzo. Rizzo is the rat character from the Muppet... he's a Muppet character, the Great Gonzo's best friend, Rizzo the Rats. And then the other
and
one,
also the rat character in that famous John Travolta movie.
Rizzo the Rat.
Midnight Cowboy. It's Dustin Hoffman. Rizzo the Rat.
I completely missed that reference.
I was talking about that famous musical, but never mind. Let's go. That was a bit of a stretch.
The other thing is Burns' yacht is named Gone Fission 2.
Oh,
nuclear. Right on. All right,
he's not. He's solar powered.
The sun.
They love the sun. That's why they're voting.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that does do it for this week's Best Darn Diddler Review Show. Andy, Dr. Andrew Breseño, thank you again so much for joining us, man, and keeping the streak alive. It really is a pleasure every time you join us. I have a blast talking to you, buddy. And I hope I get to see you soon. But in the meantime, is there anything that you want to plug? You want to talk about your book that people can still purchase, or any social media that you have?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at @JAndrewBreseño, JAndrewBreseno, where I make random jokes as often as possible. And also, you can buy my book, Down and Out. It is out from Gold Wake Press. You can get wherever you like to buy books, including Walmart.com. And as always, if you purchase the copy of this book and let me know via social media, I will write your name into my next book.
Nice.
Yeah, well, so many people took me up on that last time. It was such a huge success. I wanted to bring it back.
You want to make sure everybody has that opportunity. You're basically going to end up with a list of if you're successful enough, your book will just be a book of baby names. It's going to be all of your friends' names.
Plan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how it's going to go.
Richie, how about yourself, sir? What do you want to plug today?
Well, first of all, thank you, Andy. As always, the streak's going strong. My mom is also enjoying your book as we speak. So, that's at least another endorsement right there. Richie's mom approves,
mm-hmm. Well, she hasn't finished it yet. Don't put words in her mouth. I'm just kidding.
I mean, he's not just kidding. She hasn't finished it yet, but it is in progress. So, man, that's just tapered off like all of our Andy episodes. But you can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow myself at TheWiz_Kid23. But most importantly, you can follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And as always, just want to say thank you to everyone who's downloaded this podcast, who shares it with a friend, likes us on any of the social media, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. It's great, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm honestly kind of at a loss for words right now because I just looked at IMDb, and I can't believe we only have 3 episodes left in this season, dude. Like, what the hell? I did not realize we were getting that close to the end of another season. I honestly sometimes just lose track of time, and I think it's largely because of this podcast. But hey, that's cool. Richie's excited because he's going to have his Monty Burns voice nice and warmed up for you next week, as we'll be returning to review the episode, Monty Can't Buy Me Love. Whoa, weird that's the title of the next episode, and also the song that just played.
Yep.
It can't be.
And make sure you come back to see how low we can go.
Yeah.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.